Thank you, Chairman Jones and committee. It's with a heavy heart that Senator Kniezek and I join you today. Representatives Carlton, Duraney, and Bison are still on the House floor, so they cannot be here with us. June 7th started as a beautiful day, and it ended into a day of pain for so many. As many of you know, my community experienced a senseless tragedy where 5 bicyclists were killed and 4 were injured. This tragedy has increased awareness about what bicyclists are facing on the roadway. While this package of bills that you're considering may not eliminate all the risks and may not have changed what happened in Kalamazoo on that day, I do believe that it's going to change the daily environment that bicyclists across our state face on the roadways. A few years ago, Representatives Carlton and Duraney started working on legislation trying to improve this environment. And recently, Senator Kniezek, Representative Bison, and I joined them on this important issue. The bills that you have before you cover 3 main areas. The first is establishing a 5-foot passing distance from a bicyclist. The second is making sure that we allow for proper penalties, which would include amending the Michigan Vehicle Code to make causing an injury to a vulnerable roadway user while committing a moving violation a misdemeanor, with a maximum penalty of 1 year in jail and a fine not more than $1,000. Additionally, you'll make causing death of a vulnerable roadway user a felony with a maximum penalty of 15 years in prison and a fine not more than $7,500. And then third, mandating 3 hours of driver education coursework about bicyclists and motorcyclists on the roadway and making sure that our young drivers are learning about how to keep them safe on the roadway. You know, when it comes to driver's education, a lot of people have asked me, why is this particular piece part of the package? And I'll tell you, after the tragedy in Kalamazoo County, I was talking to my own children. I have 2 20-year-olds in my house, in addition to a 17 and a 15-year-old. And the drivers were asking, well, why don't the bicyclists ride on the sidewalk? And I shared with them that they're legal roadway users, just like a pedestrian can be. And they didn't know. And so for people who had just been through driver's education a few years ago, combined with one who just went through it, they didn't realize that all the different people who can use a roadway and what are some of the safety protocols to keep that person safe. And our young drivers don't want to hurt anyone, but if they don't know the rules and how to keep other people safe, how can they do it? Now, as you consider the testimony of those who are going to be following me, because there's a number of people who are here today, I ask for you to consider some facts. One, there's been an increasing number of people who have been hit or killed while on their bicyclists. When you start researching these individuals, these are experienced bicyclists. They're not me. I might only pull my bicycle out a few times a year. These are people who are on the roadways daily. They include Karen McKeechee, who is a 7-time world champion triathlete who was killed. Scott Elliott, tour director for the League of Michigan Bicyclists, who was injured. Jennifer Johnson, who will be testifying later with her husband. Her and her husband led organized rides. I could go on and on. The number of people who've been killed just this year alone or injured, and these are people who are very experienced. Second, fatalities involving bicyclists are up 57% just in 2015, 33 deaths in 2015. That's the largest number in 18 years, and this is all before what happened in Kalamazoo County. Third, the laws on the books already allow for bicyclists and pedestrians to use the roadway. So we're not asking for anything special or new. They're already legal roadway users. Now, my community has experienced 2 tragedies this year. Out of each, we've tried to find an opportunity to leave our community better than when it started. In the first, with the shooting tragedy, we worked on shooter alert bills, Smart 911, to try to change and have a safer environment for those who follow. Here, we're trying to make sure that those who are trying to live a healthy life, or maybe riding their bicycle to work, that they can have a healthier environment. And so that all those who've been injured or have been killed, that we can make sure that their legacy is one of improving their community. Now, I do want to specifically recognize the people from my own community who were harmed. First, those who lost their life: Deborah Bradley, Melissa Hughes, Tony Nelson, Larry Pollock, Suzanne Sipple. Those injured: Paul Gobble, Sheila Jeske, Jennifer Johnson, Paul Runnels. There's many more from throughout the state. And in fact, there's a number of people here to testify. More importantly, there's a number of people here who could testify but they're going to be sharing the same horrific story. If you talk to your bicycling friends, they'll tell you a number of them have been hit by side view mirrors. That is how close the cars are coming to them. There are some people who are in our audience that I'd like to recognize. Tracy Ruiz, a mother and police officer who was hit from behind by a passing vehicle. Pam Warner, whose husband Charlie was killed by a car attempting to pass him. Carrie Worth, whose mother Susan Cummings was killed by a pickup truck attempting to pass. Driver fled the scene and was ultimately found. Lou Kidder, his wife Karen McKeechee, was killed by a pickup truck on August 26. Nicole Muncie was riding with Karen at the time. Beth Snyder, whose husband Eric was killed by a car on July 26. He was hit from behind by a passing car. Scott Elliott, on July 23rd, hit by a passing drunk driver who fled the scene and was caught 4 hours later. Jeremy Gray, July 17, 2015, hit from behind. And later will be Jennifer Johnson, who was hit in the Kalamazoo tragedy, and her husband Steve. These are moms, dads, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives. These are families who've been impacted. And if we even think about the drivers, their life has been changed forever as well. We will have a number of people here who are going to be testifying, and a number of letters have been submitted in lieu of testimony. And just so you know, the Prosecutors Association will be testifying later as well, so if you have any technical questions on more of the legal aspects, they'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the members of the judiciary. As Senator O'Brien mentioned, these bills seek to provide additional protections for those individuals who not only share Michigan's roadways, but have every legal right to be there just as much as anybody else. And while the circumstances leading up to today's hearing are by no means new, as the Senator pointed out, we have seen a massive increase in just the last year alone of bike tragedies across the state of Michigan. And that is why the time is now for us to implement common sense protections for our drivers, our bicyclists, as well as our motorized or non-motorized vehicle users. What pleases me so much about the effort that we are undertaking today is that it is a bipartisan effort. It is a bicameral effort. We are seeking to develop a package of bills that would act as a deterrent for careless driving and provide punishments for those individuals who injure or kill a vulnerable user on the roadway. And unfortunately, because the state has yet to take action on these issues, municipalities are beginning to create their own safe passing laws. So we have seen some that require 3 feet, some say 5 feet, some say nothing at all. And that's resulted in a patchwork set of laws across the state. It creates confusion for drivers, and it asks us to follow different rules simply by crossing the border into different municipalities. I'm going to keep my remarks very brief because I believe that the individuals that are going to testify after us here today can provide a far more powerful and personal story about why we need to pass this legislation today. I believe that we have a very unique opportunity before us, and so I would ask that you join Senator O'Brien and I'd ask that you join the members of the House who are undertaking this effort as well. Join us in trying to protect the individuals whose lives are on the line every day simply by trying to enjoy a hobby, simply by trying to get to and from work or school. And so I thank you for the opportunity to testify before you here today, and again, hope that you'll join us in passing these bills. Thank you so much.
Vote back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The question I had deals with part on the training. So, I mean, Senator O'Brien, you started off your remarks saying nobody realized that the bicyclists had the right-of-way on the roads as it is right now. And I understand 1078 is going to talk about it in terms of driver's ed training, but that doesn't address the people that are already out on the road with their licenses. I was just wondering what provisions are out there to make sure that people are notified as to the new law, and frankly, how to estimate 5 feet, you know, as you're driving along there, because it's not like we got a measuring stick sitting out of the side of our cars on that. So how do you suggest we go off and educate the people that have existing licenses?
Well, thank you. I really appreciate both those questions. The first is, obviously, we're hoping that the media, including the fine folks who are here today, are going to help us get the word out if the law does change. Second, looking to see if we need to amend one of the bills to say one question every time you're new, your license needs to include a question, or if we need to add a bill. So we're looking into that right now about making sure we've got one question on there that addresses bicycle, pedestrian, and even motorcycle safety, because the driver's education bill actually covers motorcycle safety as well, which we know is a very difficult issue. When it comes to the 5-foot passing lane, I think we can work with the state police, our county sheriffs, our prosecutors, work with everybody about how best to tell people to estimate that, because you're absolutely right. How do we know what it is? And obviously, you're going to have some roadways where it may not be safe to have the 5-foot passing distance. So we're really relying on our law enforcement if they feel that the wording is not going to be appropriate enough to work with us to do that. So those are some of the concerns that I shared as well. We'll continue to refine it as it goes through. But in my community where they've already adopted a 5-foot ordinance, the police have said they're not going to start, breaking down on people and going, that wasn't 5 feet. It's really going to be about, stopping somebody and saying, do you know you were way too close? It's 5 feet. Because when you're only a foot off, you can tell a foot versus 5 feet. And so the local communities are really struggling with this issue. And I think with it, as Senator Kniezek said, becoming a statewide issue, we may not know exactly what 5 feet is when we're in the driver's seat, but we can know it's not a foot. And today the drivers are passing extremely close. On a personal note, I stopped road running a number of years ago, running on the roads, because cars played chicken with me. In fact, I had broken bottles thrown at me. I had firecrackers thrown at me, broad daylight. And I was not running in the roadway. I was running on the shoulder or even in the bike lane. One time I was running on the sidewalk of a road, and I had a broken bottle thrown at me. And as Senator Kniezek and I are training for a marathon this fall, it's been a challenge to try to loop together all the miles that I need to not run on the road so I can take care of my own safety. Bicyclists, they don't have that option. They're trying to avoid runners like me who are moving much more slowly than them. And so we got to make sure that their rights are protected on the roadway as well.
Okay, see no further questions. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you very much for your kindness, and actually the whole committee who has reached out to my community, and with Steve and Jennifer Johnson who are coming up to follow us. Thank you for all the compassion that you've shown. I've let everyone know who cares about this issue. They have a very thoughtful committee in front of them, and I appreciate you handling this sensitive issue.